Okay, we are starting the World's Best Workforce Report. There is a document that is handed out to you. That got you moving, huh? See you later. Thank you. Okay, so that document I'll just scroll through is Carrie Thompson is our curriculum coordinator, and she will be walking through this document with you.
You should be looking at the document that says summary. This is a document that, pending your approval, we'll file with the Department of Education yet this week. And it summarizes about a 20-page longer report with much more detail. But I think we've talked about many of these things across the year, so I wanted to just review the summary, which goes over our goals for the previous school year and how we came out on those and the strategies that we used to meet those goals. So I'm moving on to page 2. One of the things we need to do within the district is to have an advisory committee that follows and advises about anything to do with school goals and World's Best Workforce. And in our district, we use our District Curriculum Review Advisory Committee, and those same people serve concurrently with World's Best Workforce as well. You'll see their names there. Several community members, and we're thankful for their input and what they provide to us for feedback. Then you'll see a goal here for each one of the areas of the World's Best Workforce. The first of them being in the area of all students ready for kindergarten. In our district, our goal was that all of our incoming kindergartners would be assessed with our intake tool that we made, and we met that goal by assessing 100% of them. And in the middle column, you'll see that we had about half of the children who demonstrated very clear readiness for kindergarten. 39% were partially ready, and 12.9% were not ready using that particular tool. Moving on to the goal that's about third graders achieving grade level literacy. This goal, we had a two-part goal district-wide. The first was that 70% of our primary students in K1 and 2 would meet or exceed the 50th percentile on the NWBA. So we want our kids to be, we want 70% of them to be better than the average in the nation. And then the second part of it was that our third grade state reading test would improve by 4%. In this one, our goal was also met, and you'll see the detail there. We had 72% of our primary students above the 50th percentile, above the national midline, and we had 66% of our students in third grade meeting state proficiency. The state had 57. Then there's a goal that we need to make about closing achievement gaps for all ethnic groups and racial groups. And our intent was that we would improve by 4% in all of those areas. This particular goal was not met entirely, and you'll see some pluses and minuses there. In the area of math, we were able to close the gaps by a range of percentages for our American Indian students, the Black students, Hispanic students. But our gaps for students who have free and reduced lunch and our special ed students, those increased in the area of math. So some plus and some minus. In reading, we were able to close the achievement gap with Black students by over 10%, but the other groups, there were some increases. So that we didn't meet the goal there. We're happy with some of those, but not so much of the others. Mixed bag. In the area of college and career readiness, our goal was that our high school students who took the ACT test would have a composite score that equaled or exceeded the state. The state composite score was 21.1. As a district, we were 20.6. And if we take that apart a little more, Kennedy was 21.3, so they did exceed the state. The IQ Academy was 19.4 for their score. So that goal was not met either because it was a district-wide goal, not a building goal. And then on the last area I want to say No Child Left Behind because that's out the window. World's Best Workforce is that we improve our graduation rate. And our district goal last year was that we would have 75% of the students in our district graduate. And you'll notice the detail there that this is for 2015 because the state data is always lags a year for graduation rate. So that's the most current that can be public. Our district had 68.7% of students graduate, and it's been that number for 2 years in a row. But if we disaggregate, you'll see that the number for the traditional high school, the senior high, was 98.2. That's an admirable score for students graduating. Area Learning Center, 33.3, and the IQ Academy, 19.7. So on this one, we also have to say does not meet because it was a district goal, not a building goal.
I'm going to add in a comment here regarding this category. Area Learning City, many of our students graduate in their 5th year, if you will. It's called super seniors. So they might not graduate on time, but they do graduate either 1 year after or 2 years after. Those numbers are not here. And then with IQ Academy, interesting that every Student Succeeds Act, the new No Child Left Behind is called ESSA. And what that is regarded to then is, or they fix this a little bit. So as an example, if a student from the Twin Cities area, just pick a district down there, decides to enroll in IQ Academy on April 2nd, for example, their not graduating goes on our IQ Academy list, okay, and not on the school in the cities. Whereas the ESSA law now, what they're going to do is wherever the student spent the majority of their school days, that's who would get dinged, if you will, by them not graduating. So what IQ Academy is trying to do is be part of the solution for kids who are not graduating on time. They can get into the online school and hopefully advance their education. So those numbers, hopefully in the future here with ESSA, will look much different for our district.
The next section of the summary is some background on how we identified what our needs were and the basis behind the goals that the district set last year. This is the background. As far as kindergarten readiness, we recognized that we needed some sort of a baseline, and we didn't have a tool to measure the intake of our kindergartners. So we prepared that document, and then we were able to go on and use it last year. As far as 3rd grade literacy, we noticed that our state reading test, MCA, the scores had been kind of flat for the past several years, just minimal changes. And so our goal was that we wanted to put a percentage on there for improvement. And then it also fell in when the IQ school added elementary online. So we were able to put Cleveland and IQ together there and look for a growth. As far as closing achievement gaps, we were particularly able to notice that our students who are served in special education, that's the group that has very large gaps. Gap of 33.9% in reading from non-special ed students and 29.8% lower than non-special ed students in math. So we knew we needed some attention there. In the area of college and career readiness, we had a lot of support from our community, particularly in manufacturing and engineering in the medical world, to focus on some of our programming and expand to STEM Academy, and we were able to get that off the ground. We were also supported by our area nursing homes and the college to prepare a certified nursing assistant course, and the legwork was done for that last year. So we were able to start that course in September. And then here's a little more detail about graduation that Mr. Ness mentioned, and you'll see that both the Area Learning Center and the IQ Academy had significant increases when we allow those students 5 years to complete their work rather than the 4-year metric that we used previously. We also, I think there's some detail there about when they stay for 6 years, but that went down a little bit, so 5 years seems to be the best number to measure. That's an amount of time that many students are willing to put in and still keep trying to finish high school. Then there's a part of the summary where we need to explain some of the strategies that we used last year to meet these goals. And there are strategies there for students, for teachers, and then district-wide. In the area of students, we've listed some of the assessments that we use to measure along the way. Formative assessments, we use a Dibbles assessment in reading every few weeks with some of our children who especially need reading support. We test students with STAR tests on the computer. That's another reading test given 3 or 4 times a year in elementary so that we can measure growth very carefully and more than just once a year with the state reading tests. We also use our time with teachers together in grade level meetings for kindergarten through 8th and in professional learning communities to look in detail at some data about student growth. Another strategy that we were able to add last year was the addition of an Indian School Home Liaison worker who worked particularly to close achievement gaps with American Indian children. We were able to continue our ADSIS reading and math support. That's a grant-funded program for, it's more than tutoring, it's an additional learning opportunity for students who need to catch up and close gaps. And we were able to carry that out last year as well. And then one thing that our district has done very well for several years, and it continued last year, was the Career Expo for high school students. And we hosted that in our school and also invited some schools from the region so that students keep some career plans and some future planning in mind. I have mentioned for teachers that we were able to expand on our professional learning communities and grade level meetings, and each of those groups has a unique focus, I think, that fits their subject matter and the age of the students that they work with, and we were pleased with the growth that those groups were able to make. We've maintained our curriculum review cycle, looking for best practice. The district advisory committee meets about 7 times across the school year and advises the teachers who give reports, as well as the school board member who attends those meetings, and that information trickles to you. Another way that we were able to meet needs of teachers is through the district staff development committee. They also meet monthly. That one is teachers and school people, though we could have the community input on that. And it's a way to meet their teachers' needs for professional development. And then district-wide, in the big picture, this last school year, new social studies curriculum was implemented for grades K through 12. That followed a couple years of study and review and planning. We did some piloting in Phi-Ed and health of possible purchase of heart monitors, which we actually did do this fall, but last year was the planning year for that and the testing year, so that we can get real clear feedback for teachers on student growth in Phi-Ed, and it allows us to communicate further with parents. I did mention the STEM Academy that has to do with science, technology, engineering, and math, and we have that across the street in what used to be the vocational building for those of you in the community. It's a group of courses, 3 or 4 courses, and students stay together for about half the day, working in English, math, engineering, manufacturing, the integrated type setting. And then the work on CNA was another way to address careers. One interesting thing that happened in the summer, I think we've had it 2 times now, is the Google Summit available with our district, and we have invited area districts in the region for some intensive training for staff that relates to using the Google platform with our technology. Then additional to the report this year, on the last page, you'll see that we had to provide some documentation about students having equitable access to excellent teachers. So you'll see some information there about how our district is configured. One of the advantages of our present configuration is that all students have access to all of the district's highly qualified teachers at their grade level. Presently, we have 99.1% of our teachers meeting licensure compliance. All of our Title I paraprofessionals meet requirements. And within our district, this was kind of interesting. We have 47.9% of our teachers with bachelor's degrees, 48.5% with master's degrees, and we have a very experienced staff. 25.7% of our teachers have 3 to 10 years of experience, 72% over 10 years of experience. You'll notice at the bottom there that's something about the student demographics. Our free and reduced price lunch, that number is creeping up, and district-wide we have 34.1% of students. We do not have as much diversity in our district as some around us. We're still similar to what we have been for some time, 89.5% white students. Our special ed numbers are just a little under state average. We have 11.7% last year.
Just all of this information, the report, the summary, the full report, and tons more documents on student data can be found at our Fergus Falls website. It's under information and under reports. So all of that information, if you're looking for that data, can be found on our website. Any questions for Carrie from the board or the audience? Any questions?
First of all, thank you for doing this. And my question is, once we approve this and it's submitted into the state, does the state give us back any feedback on the report itself?
They've started to do that. Yes, they've started to read them. Last year we did get some real specific feedback on each one of the sections, and we worked to improve those and address the things that they thought we needed more detail with. So they do give us feedback on the summary. They do not give us feedback on the larger report.
Gary, question on regarding for the goals that are not met. Do they give us a certain amount of time that they ask that those goals get met? Do we try to achieve those, or how does that work?
They have not given us any guidance on what we're to do about the ones that are not met. However, we have gone ahead this year and created new goals for the present year, and we've picked up the ones that we didn't meet. We've worked harder to try to readdress those.
And I think a goal, we want to have stretch goals. We want to make sure that they're really out there striving, so the intent wouldn't be to set the goals where we can reach every one. We really want to stretch our students and staff to make sure that happens. Other questions? Not here today. So that's the end of the World's Best Workforce Report. We'll call on Mark Maston to come up, and he'll have two hearings here. And the first one is internet safety, he'll comment on, and then taxes payable.
All right. Internet protection hearing. Back in December of 2000, the federal government passed a law called the Child Internet Protection Act. And at the time that this was being developed, the internet was just on the verge of being implemented into schools and libraries around the country. The federal government had a program called the E-rate program, in which they helped fund these endeavors to put internet into schools. And one of the requirements, of course, back in 2000 was that a hearing would be held by the school board to listen to the concerns by the parents of the community to determine what kind of measures of protection that should be provided by the school district in terms of internet safety. The internet safety, basically, the SIPA law basically works around the law on obscenity, and 99% of the obscenity law is basically pornography. And so schools all around the country and libraries have been filtering through electronic means for the last 16 years. And Fergus Falls is one of those school districts that also has filters. We contract this service out. A company, I don't know who has the job of searching the internet looking for porn, but that's apparently somebody's job. And they then upgrade periodically, I believe it's every night, in fact, if need be, to our server or our firewall, and logs the internet accordingly. So as far as the content goes on our school district network, we're pretty good. I haven't heard many complaints. I don't know if you as a school board have heard any complaints. However, I think some parents a few years back were shocked when their children were watching porn and stuff from school, and they learned that their smartphone could be turned off of our network and stay on their cellular network, and therefore circumvent the filter. So that still exists, and so parents be forewarned. I don't know if there's anybody here in the public that wants to comment, but this is their hearing, and now we're open to questions. Okay, hearing none, I would assume that the hearing is over. Thank you. With that, then I'll start with the truth in taxation hearing. This was developed probably 10, 15 years ago by the state legislature in an attempt to get public input on their property taxes so that community members could come tonight and listen and ask questions. And again, tonight, we typically get one or two people that show up. We've had in the past answered those questions, but I still want to go through the levy piece because the board members, so that you can see what it is that we are going to levy for here this next school year. This document is set up into chunks. The first part here is the general fund, then the community ed, and then at the bottom, as we'll get through it, will be debt service. It also shows by column what is going to be levied for next year. Will appear on tax statements here in the spring and next October. And then what was paid this year, what kind of changes, and what percentage increase. What is not shown on here is this is the levy portion, and what is not shown on here is the aid. In many cases, these items are supported by state aid as well. And so the common theme that we heard many years ago in the past was, why don't we cut this out so we don't have to pay the tax on it? Well, that may be only 10% or 20% of the revenue. The other 80 or 90% is state aid, and you have to cut accordingly the state aid as well. So it puts the school district in a difficult situation to cut some of these taxes. And these taxes are either limited by the state legislature, and typically on a basis, on a per student basis, or they're voted on by the voters. And so the school board really doesn't have much leeway in terms of levying whatever they want. They have some discretion as to how much they want to levy, but they don't have the authority just to say, we want another $1 million to do it. that is prevented by state law. And it's overseen by the Department of Revenue, the Otter Tail County Auditor's Office, and so forth. So it's not like we can sneak one by, so to speak. As you can see, there's a number of categories. Each of them have a specific need. Referendum, obviously, is one that is voted on by the taxpayers for the MCA, the Heritage Building, where you have our early childhood education programs, and the city arena, where we use it for BIAD and activities. Next section is community ed, pretty self-explanatory, early childhood family ed, and we have a child care levy that we put in there for preschool programs. And then the next section is for our debt service. Again, this is for the bonds on this building, and that was passed by the voters here, about 2007. The total that we're looking for here is $6.6 million compared to 6.5 from a year ago, a change of $130,000, 2%. That's the increase. I will note that market value has gone up 3.7. That's a combination of the values of properties going up and new properties being added to the school district. So it's grand total. Adjusted net tax capacity, that is how our taxes are calculated. It's a means of assessing a piece of property so that businesses pay more, farms pay less, and residents pay an equal share. So that number is actually more important to us, and as you can see, even that number rose by 2.7%. So when you compare the 2% going up here on total dollars versus 2.7% on adjusted net tax capacity, that means your taxes are pretty much going to stay about the same as they were last year, the actual dollars that a homeowner would see. So a good chunk of that amount right there is going to just be from new properties that have come on. And that new property could be in the form of an extra garage that you put on, or it could be another business that was built. I don't know. The county auditor would know exactly what kinds of properties it would be. You'll see a tax rate here. There we go. Tax rate, 3.21%, 32.3. So again, what I'm trying to get across here is that in general, your taxes for the school district is going to be about the same. You'll see that voters have approved 3 million of it. 3.7 is the rest of the taxes that we do. Interestingly, at 6.6, which is fiscal 18, so 8 years ago, our taxes were at 6.2. So our school district taxes have not changed very much over time in the last 8 years. But during that time, a lot of things have happened too. That's when we built the $32.5 million project. We added another $3 million plus on outdoor facilities, and we also had some board-approved levy authority. So good news, not a lot of increase in taxes. So tonight I'll be recommending that you set the levy at $6,671,760.97. Remember that number, please. Okay. Questions for Mr. Masson?
Okay, well, we're closing the Truth and Taxation meeting, and we will be moving on to our regular school board meeting. Can you